can you see this person's perspective,
Right.
but can you see beyond this barrier that is in front of you right now? And we do get to that place of gratitude and actually appreciation. Now, it takes us refusing to stay in a victim mindset in order to do that.
Oh my goodness. We're going to open up a big old can of worms today. If you're joining us, make sure you let us know that you're here.
Yes.
How are you?
I am fan-freaking-tastic. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good.
Good.
It's got some dangerous weather coming in. I was just looking at an extreme storm chaser, and he's in my hometown in Louisiana. So I'm kind of worried about the folks back home.
Yeah, I saw that we were supposed to, it's supposed to start around 3 o'clock this afternoon and all the way to 9 o'clock in Middle Tennessee, sort of taking windows of it.
Yeah, it's scary.
It's scary.
It is very scary.
It's scary. It's just about as scary as the anger climate in our world today.
I mean, you know what? And I'm not going to mention the slap heard around the world because I think I don't even know how much of that wasn't just kind of made up. I don't know, but
Yeah.
When it comes to real life, anger presents itself in a lot of different ways, and so I think a lot of us carry anger, and we don't even realize it's anger that's at hand.
Mm-hmm. Well, anger can show up as being passive aggressive. It can show up as being disinterested. It can show up as being withdrawn, and it can just show up batshit crazy sometimes right in the middle of our face.
It's really a thing too that some of our behaviors toward ourselves are because we're angry at someone else, but we don't want to let them know how angry we really are. I mean,
Absolutely.
we overeat, we overdrink, we overdo something.
Or we underdo it.
Good point.
Or we underdo it. Because while we're overdoing all those other things, we're under self-loving. We're under the radar on being self-kind. We can under self-eat. We can under self-sleep. We can under tie that hair up. All right, Wendy.
That's Wendy jumping in there. It's like, y'all stop it. Now just stop it.
I know. She's like, get that hair up. I know. I need to get it. Hey, it's never far. It's never far.
I know. I had mine on my wrist. I had, I said, look, we're gonna do it today. Mine was crazy too. We the crazy hair girls, and it's all right. Good morning, Elizabeth. And she says, batshit crazy and loud here, at least in my younger days.
Absolutely.
Oh, and this Avery. Hey, Avery, bad weather coming to Louisiana. So bat down the hatches, my friend. Anyway, we're sending some love and light to everybody who's watching today. We're talking about anger and what it looks like and appropriate ways to deal with it. Let's say there's someone in our family. What would you call appropriate anger? Let's discuss anger with children first.
Okay.
I'm not a mom, but you are a mom, and you are a mom of a female creature. There has got to be a time when anger has reared its head, one or the other, anger toward you, anger toward her.
Well, surprisingly enough, my child is really good at not showing anger towards me. And I think that's because we have a really good communication skill set. And because I am a friend, but what trumps being a friend is being a mom. So, but that said, my anger when this child was, and I am not sharing anything here that I have not told her about, and that in fact I did not journal about with her. When she was about 3 weeks old, or no, 3 months old, I guess. She had not slept. She was not eating. She was not breastfeeding. We could not get formula right. I was slept deprived. I was slept deprived. No, I was having some issues with sleep deprivation. I was feeling like a failure. I was feeling like I had no help. I was feeling like she was manipulating me. I was feeling like I wish she had never been born. I was feeling like I hated her. in that moment. Now I'm just being real. Okay.
Okay, this is an important thing. There are people who listen that feel guilty because they've had these feelings toward their child at one side or a time or the other. We got to talk about this. This is
Absolutely.
even the storyline right now on 911 emergency. There's a character that's just returning, and she almost accidentally, in her depression, her hormone imbalance, whatever, almost killed her child, and she was terrified of what would happen. So she just left and checked herself in somewhere. So let's discuss what that anger, natural anger at that time looks like.
Well, at that time for me, it was strictly because my 3-month-old child was trying to manipulate me and control me, because don't all 3-month-old children try to manipulate like that? Right. No. But what I recognized after I, screamed and yelled at her and told her I wish she hadn't been born and all these horrible things that were not my finest moment as a mom, what I recognized that it was my own shame coming up. Because I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the skills. I had heard how easy it was and how, this was just such a wonderful moment in your life. But that wasn't in that moment, not the moments before and the moments after, but in that moment sucked. And it was not easy. And it's not easy for parents who give birth. It's not easy for parents who step in as what I call another parents, bonus parents. It's not easy for biological parents that don't carry the baby. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of shame that comes up, and we can turn that shame into anger and then project it outward. But then ultimately we carry it with us. So not only do we spew it out onto other people, we then tuck it away inside us, because as if punishing everyone around us and then feeling bad about it wasn't bad enough, we decide that we're going to just tuck it in between our butt cheeks and squeak the rest of our lives, holding it in and not forgiving ourselves. So I did work around that literally within just a matter of days and minutes. And that, while it wasn't my finest moment as a mom, it was one of the most powerful moments transforming my life. So wow, there's a gift in that. Mm-hmm. But we can find ourselves overwhelmed. I don't want to get off too much on pointing fingers and blaming and everything, with making my own assumptions about what happened recently with Will Smith and Chris Rock. I don't even know what show it was, but I know it was some kind of award show. But in that moment, he was overcome by whatever, and it showed up, and then he showed out, right? So whether it was staged or not staged, my heart doesn't say that it was staged. I feel like it was really just a moment where he just was out of he was just out, not present in his body. Right. And we all have those moments. We can have them with our kids. We can have them with our parents. We can have them with our spouses. We say things that don't make us feel great, but it just comes up and out.
What is black rage? I've heard that referred to my whole life, and I don't exactly know what that is. I know what I think it is, where you almost black out, but you're doing something in anger. And you don't remember that you did it?
Yeah, people will call it black rage or blind rage. It's both the same thing. It's where your body is stimulated so much that your brain shuts off the recording system. Just like when people drink too much and the brain just kind of goes, this is too much. And the brain just shuts down the recording system, so to speak. So we don't have a recollection of that. And that oftentimes is not to say the worst, but can be for a person who has experienced that, any kind of blind rage or, blackout drunk, that kind of episode. It even happens when there's trauma, when there's been a sexual assault, or when there's been a variety of things can happen in life where our brain just goes, this is too much. And it hits the pause button. And then we will find ourselves really badgering ourselves to remember, and it's just not there to remember.
Wow.
It's just not there. It's not, we can piecemeal it together, and, and we can have people tell us, well, this is what you said, or this is what you did, or worse, we have people go, well, what you did to me was horrible. And you go, oh crap. What did I do? What did I say? I want to make amends. Please tell me. And they go, well, I just can't even talk about it. I'm not even going to talk about it. That's manipulation. That's when somebody intentionally or otherwise is trying to hold something over your head and punish you. And they may not even be aware that that's what they're trying to do.
Ah, okay. That's important to note, because if you're the person that perpetrated the anger, you're not always 100% part of the thing. It's just like, if you bring up the Chris Rock and Will Smith thing, there was not, most everybody says, it wasn't the way to handle it, but what he said was out of line. But, there's so many situations in that. But in general, if there are two people involved, there are two stories, and there are two narratives going on. Elizabeth says, I know that black blind rage. I've been there, mostly in my mid to later teen years. Complete black out of body and blackout, but my body and mouth were working.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Yeah.
Continuing, at 15 or so, I apparently moved my entire bedroom out of the house and onto the front lawn. I hated my family and didn't want to be part of them. I don't remember this at all, but my brother remembers completely.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, we do these things. And here's the other thing, whether we're doing something we perceive as right, or we're doing something someone else perceives as wrong, or vice versa, being accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And also piggybacking on the workshop that we just had this last weekend, not making assumptions that what somebody said was wrong, or somebody's action was wrong. We're not in their shoes. Now, from a big picture, can we look at it and say, okay, as humanity, we need to get our shit together? Absolutely, we can. However, we can all be pushed to just beyond the edge of our control. We can say things that are hurtful. I know people who have said things that are hurtful in a split moment and have regretted it the rest of their lives, because pride won't let them say what they really need to say. Talk about self-punishment. I mean, that's self-punishment all day long,
Let's see. Wendy says, black or white, we were raised to protect our mama's wives and kids. True, Dad. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Mickey Bell, we're going to have him on as a guest, because he's a comedian. And so I'm sure he could weigh in on this extremely well. And he also talks really openly about some of the issues that he deals with in his day-to-day that are really, really deep and certainly not surface.
Right. And, and that, sorry, Ella has just joined the show today. She's just decided that she's just going to sit here and grunt for no other reason than
Ella's a dog. Ella's a dog, by the way.
Ella's a dog. Yes, we as human beings don't have, or we do have the ability to control our actions and our words, but sometimes our triggers override that ability. And that's when we come back later and we go, hey, I was out of line. Whatever it is, and having the grace to do that for ourselves, and also understanding that anger held in is going to manifest in physical ailments in our body, as well as it's just not good. It's not good for us as human beings to just live from a resting state of anger.
When someone has had one of those explosive anger moments with you, I know you can't unsee it, you can't unfeel it, you can't unexperience it. How do you move past it?
Me personally?
No, just in general. How does someone move past in a healthy way when someone has had one of those anger episodes?
Well, first, knowing, if it's hurt your feelings or hurt your heart space, being able to express that in a healthy way, being able to take time to think about their situation. You know, we have people sometimes that will say hurtful things to us, or they'll, you know, I had a client one time that was triggered to the point that they got up, and this has been years ago, and it was sort of like they got up, they were walking out of the office, it was explicit, 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 and then a slamming of a door and a slamming of another door. Well, in that moment, was I triggered? Yeah, I was triggered, because I was like, what the heck is happening?
Yeah.
But did I take it personally? No, because they were going through something. So being able to reach out, if it's safe to reach out and say, are you okay? You know, I mean, like, I get it. You're having a moment. Fortunately, they reached back out and they said, yeah, I was in deep and I did not even recognize I got up and left. And I said, that's okay. You know, how do we handle it? First, we don't react. And that can be really triggering when we are being verbally assaulted or physically. Now, physically assaulted, obviously, if somebody's physically assaulting you, you know, you may have to protect yourself, or you may have to leave the situation. But I'm talking about if you're in a relationship or a situation with somebody and they're just being nasty to you, you know, you don't have, we've all heard, don't stoop to their level, right? We have to put our emotions in check. And then we have to be able to have a conversation with the person and say, look, this is not okay. Because I go back to what I've said time and time again. And when I say this, you're going to go, I've heard this a million times. We teach people how to treat us.
Whew.
So
did y'all hear that? We teach people how to treat us. Yes.
And I'm not saying that in the moment when somebody is screaming at you, that you taught them to scream at you. But I'm saying if you don't stop that behavior in a very rational and healthy way, it will continue. And by not putting a boundary up, and by not setting your own precedence of, you know what, I need to handle my anger. We need to know what our anger looks like. We need to know what it feels like. We need to recognize it, because when it starts to creep up on us, it's like a mudslide. It's like, oh, hey, I think that, boom, it's over. You got to know what anger feels like.
Yeah. How do you express your anger? That's a good question. Do we all know that? Do we all know that answer? I had a few people who just joined us. Steve Rame just joined us. Hey, Steve. Prayers over your daddy, Steve. I'm glad that you guys are here. Rhonda wanted to weigh in. Right or wrong, the Chris Rock, Will Smith thing. Everybody needs to remember that they're actors. There was no place for that, but they're actors. If you watch close enough, he really didn't smack him, because if you're going to smack somebody, you're going to probably use a punch. And Chris Rock never responded to it. Was it inappropriate? Yes, but let's move on. They get enough publicity. It happens in real life to real people every day, all day long. They don't need to publicize it. Well, everybody's talking about it. And the reason we're talking about it is it made me curious about how we all are affected by anger every day. And we do not always call anger, anger. And
we don't.
And
we can call anger judgment. We can be really pissed off at somebody and not say a word, not say a cross word, but honey, judge all up and down all day long. You know, we can do that. We're good at that. Humans are really good at that. You know, we have to know how our anger shows up. Where does it show up in your body? You know, where does your anger show up in your body? From
dis-ease almost always comes from an anger. You know, anger takes root and becomes kudzu in our body. Health. It's just not good. Doesn't mean you're don't have a right to it.
Sure.
But you need to learn how to process it. You know, I mean, one of my favorite things for me was I picked up some boxing gloves and I went to a trainer, and, you know, he was like, yeah, he was kind of teasing me and said, you know, you probably know, you don't hit very hard, I'm sure, you know, but, you know, you give me your best shot. And he's like, whoa, you know, because and that's where it was all inside. It was all inside. And so finding ways to release the anger with something physical that we can do.
People can exercise if exercise is their thing. If it's not, they can automatic write, which is when you're writing and you're not trying to make sense of it. You're just letting things come out. You're not worried about grammar. You're not worried about punctuation. You're not worried about run-on sentences. You're just writing. And it can be anything from a half a sentence to one word to a paragraph to whatever. You're just writing. Also seeking professional help, because sometimes when we grow up with angry parents, we don't see it as anger. It's just the way it was.
It's your norm.
Just,
yeah.
Yeah. It's just the way it was. It's just life.
This is the way people treat each other.
Mm-hmm. And
People
it's
who
not.
love each other. Families, just because they're in your family does not give anybody the right to scream at you, to yell at you, to degrade you. Those things are not, you're not born with that right to do that to each other.
Right. Exactly. And so when we start to accept those things as natural or normal, then odds are we're going to attract a partner or friends that do the same thing. And while it hurts us deeply, we still accept it as being okay on some level because, well, they don't mean to.
Yeah, that's what families do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and maybe they don't mean to, but just because they don't mean to doesn't mean it's okay that they do it.
Elizabeth, the depth at which I can feel anger is scary to me. I think I've been down that path. I try hard to not let things in my life get to that point. That's good. That's why we have to find our ways to channel that out. My ex and I have talked our anger situation out so many times. If something comes up that reminds us about it, we talk it through. We've learned that talking about what happened and truly listening to the other has helped us each to forgive.
Mm-hmm. And that is beautiful when you have a relationship where you can actually communicate that together effectively and heal from it. Sometimes we have parents who have been abusive or neglectful, and they've since transitioned. Or we have spouses that we're divorced from, or we have siblings that we're estranged from. And we have to know what to do with that discord that's within us. If we don't have a way of having a healthy conversation with them, definitely not commiserating with friends about the same problem, because that just stirs up the energy, the emotions. It just keeps all of that stuff very fresh, very alive, and very real. And it's all subjective, because as we age, many times we subtract from or add to in order to get the same type of body response that we're looking for. So being clear with where our anger shows up. Do you feel it in your throat? Is it like you can't get your words? Is it in your throat? Does your throat hurt? Like you want to cry, but you're holding it back, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is it in your legs where they're fidgety? Is it in your fist? Do you find that when someone makes you angry, you look down and suddenly you've got a fist clenched and you don't even recognize you do it? Is it in your stomach? Do you feel your eyes pulsating? The anger shows up so many different ways, just like all of our emotions do. But anger is the one that left unresolved will cause the biggest damage, because underneath most angers is a sense of fear for our whatever, it's our security, it's our safety, it's our whatever.
Well, your specialty in this world, if we all want to talk about your specialty, it's dealing with transition. And there's a lot, and I want to talk about this as our final issue, is when we are angry because someone died. That is a big thing. And that, since that is what you talk a lot about, and death, let's talk about the anger because someone committed suicide, the anger that someone died and they shouldn't have. Maybe it was no fault of theirs. Maybe something happened and you're just angry that you didn't get this life with that person.
Well, so there's the anger that you didn't get the life, which gets blurred in with the grief. So then it takes and it can get blurred in with the resentment, and it can get blurred in with the guilt, and it can get blurred in with all kinds of stuff. So we usually will redirect because we need to blame somebody. And typically the first person that we reach out to blame, if there's another party involved, we blame them. The second energy that we will blame right out of the gate is God. Right out of the gate. And that causes a whole melting pot full of shame and all kinds of other stuff. Because if you've been raised with an ideation that, God provides everything, then when you're praying for God not to take your loved one and your loved one doesn't stay, that can be, you can be mad. We can live from that place of, well, everything happens for a reason. But let me tell you, no one that's grieving wants to hear that. Like, that is like the what not to say kind of thing. So knowing what, knowing how to sit with that. If someone dies and you're angry that they've died, or if they pass and you're angry that they left without an apology. You didn't get an apology from them, or they left unexpectedly and you didn't get to apologize. We can displace that anger. That anger is truly about, for most people, it's the loss. And it masks itself as anger because people are angry in the moment. They need
absolutely.
They need someone or something to hold accountable for that loss.
Everybody,
and the truth of it is, sometimes
everybody needs that.
And sometimes there's just not anything.
And that makes us angry.
Absolutely. And then what we do is we turn it on ourselves. We'll turn it to ourselves. Not saying that we go around saying, I'm so mad at myself, I'm so mad at myself, but we'll be angry about something. And then, as you had said earlier, we'll drink, or we'll be angry about something and we will emotionally eat, or we'll be angry about something, because that's what's showing up. But as I said earlier, that's not the root of it. That's the mask. So,
Alicia joins us. Anger isn't an emotion. It's a result of fear, frustration, or pain, mental or physical. And Miranda joining us. Thank you, Devon, for caring enough about the world to have the uncomfortable conversations we all need. Well, Teri and I will have the uncomfortable conversations because we are in this world. I mean, we have these conversations, and I've had things pointed out. Well, and nothing makes me angrier than someone pointing out that I'm just angry. You're just angry. And it's like, no, I'm not angry.
Right. But to be able to articulate that and say, here's why I'm frustrated. Here's why I see people all the time that will say, I just had a couple sit in front of me this morning, and the conversation was back and forth, and it was, there was this discord that was happening. And what happened was, I just interjected and I said, stop me if I'm wrong. But what I'm picking up on is that you feel completely disconnected.
Yeah.
And unheard. And immediately emotions came. And they were like, yes, I am. But behind that, what I was seeing and what their partner was seeing was anger. Just anger. And it was like, but that's what we do. That's what we learn, right? We're imprinted, properly or otherwise, we're imprinted with, if you have to get big to be heard, then you get big to be heard. But many times getting big doesn't make us heard at all. We get big, our energy gets big, and then people go, I don't want anything to do with that. And so they shut down, or they shut out, or they dial the radio to static, and they don't hear anything we're saying, which just leaves us feeling more frustrated and unheard.
Right.
Bottom line is, we're humans. Sometimes we hit the board on the bullseye, and other times we hit the wall next to it. And, we're human.
Hmm. Well, that's why we're all here. That's why we meet at launch date every week, and finding ways to. And Alicia's talking about controlling our anger. It's one thing to control it, but figuring out, I think, finding a way to get to the bottom of why we feel that way
Yes.
and learning ways to deal with the root of that is not controlling our anger. It literally helps us from even getting to that place to begin with. And it's what you've been trying to say, whether it is physical activity, whether it is an exercise, whether it is getting professional help.
Yeah. I
Because
mean, we don't ever, we can say that we control our anger, but there's a quote out there that says, "He who angers us controls us."
woo, that's
And
true.
and I love that quote because we can monitor and we can adjust. But if there is something, if you get every time you get in the car, if you are proud to say, I have road rage and I know it, then it's not the car that's the problem. It's not driving that's a problem. It's being imprinted by unhealthy imprints, and it's a collection of funk that you're carrying around that gives you free reign to be angry. So actually,
Mhm.
people who have road rage, as much as they don't like road rage, they love being in a car because it gives them permission to just wild out. So but that whole wilding out thing is horrible on our body because we're not created to be happy all the time or sad all the time or angry all the time. we
Mhm.
have we have emotions that regulate, and there are hundreds of emotions,
Mhm.
and they ebb and flow. We're not supposed to get stuck on one and let that be just our natural resting place. If you are
Right.
going to get stuck on one, at least get stuck on like being content, being peaceful,
Oh, yeah,
because at
exactly.
least then you can lasso it and maneuver it and use it like clay to create something else out of it.
Yeah, I call the word that I use is process.
Hmm.
How do I process this? What is this? And um, there are a lot of families who have the character in the family that's the loudmouth that controls all the situation. They're the angry one.
Hmm.
And then there's those people who are the quiet one who just kind of take it all in. There's the peacemaker who tries to make everybody get along. There are all those roles in families or in group situations, work
Hmm.
situations. But the bottom line is figuring out how to process the truth. And one
And
thing you have taught me, Teri, is to, okay, you're not telling the truth. What is really happening? And that's the thing that we try to do here on this show. It's not of no guilt, no judgment. If you have let some anger fly, there's a reason for it.
and and our truth is so subjective as well, right? Facts are facts, and truth, well, it's usually not true unless it's our truth. So you know I mean, but just being accountable with our emotions, being accountable with our reactions, not putting ourselves in situations where we are showing up less than. But when you find yourself triggered and impulsively reacting, then
Mm-hmm.
be mature enough to say, that was not my finest moment. And I owe you an apology for that. I hope you can
Uh-huh.
forgive me. Because there's
Make it
another
real.
thing, yes, there's another thing about our apologies. People will say all the time, well, I apologized. And so, I did my part. But there's a big difference. Making a statement of, I'm sorry, Devon, I hurt your feelings, you know, falls very flat compared to, Devon, I was out of line and I'm very sorry for my words. And I hope that you can forgive me.
That's real.
That's real. That makes me, or doesn't make me, but that allows me to be in a place of pure vulnerability. Because if you accept that apology or you do not, then it's not about you holding the power. It's about me saying, I'm not controlling the situation by going, look, I'm sorry. Well, she didn't forgive me. That's her problem, not mine. I apologized. That's not an apology. And I honestly don't even know why we got off on apology and forgiveness all of a sudden. My brain just took a sharp right and said, that's
you know
where
what?
we go. So
That's where it does with processing anger, because I think a lot of us have anger because we have an apology that we wish we could get, but we aren't going to get it. And being able to let go of that person in our life that we really wish they would come to us and realize the damage they've done and say that they're sorry. That was my biggest source of my anger, Teri, to be honest with you. And a lot of people are like that. They've been waiting for that apology their whole lives. And the person passes away and they still didn't get it. How do you live your life and have quality of it when you don't get that apology?
You ask yourself, how would that apology have changed your life? I did that with my dad. You know, my dad passed away and I didn't get an apology from him. But I had already started processing that long before he transitioned. And I didn't expect, I wanted an apology most of my life. I wanted an apology. I needed an apology. Got to a point where, you know what? He's not actually the one causing harm to me now. I am, because I'm hanging on to it. This has nothing to do with him. And then did I get an apology before he transitioned? No, I did not. But you know what? That apology would not have changed my life. It really wouldn't have. I can change my life. I can do that. Does it feel warm and fuzzy? Yeah, sure. Do our littles like apologies? Absolutely. But we have to be accountable for ourselves.
Elizabeth says, my life became so much better when I learned to let go of what I expected out of others, especially when it comes to apologies.
Well, Rhonda. And not getting an apology from someone is not getting an apology from someone doesn't mean it actually validate, or for us, it can validate a sense of, I don't feel respected. And I need to feel respected, or I want to feel respected. So then we have to put ourselves in situations and circumstances and around people who have an appreciation for us. Most importantly, we have to respect ourselves. We have to appreciate ourselves.
There was a key question you asked me when I told you about personally the person I was expecting to say they were sorry and to realize the error of their ways and have this big monumental change. And you said, well, what would you have them do? And I'm like, what do you mean? What would I have them do? Really, what do you want? What do you want them to say? What do you want them to, what is it? And how's it going to change your life at this point? And it's like, well, you're right. Candy has the great last words for our show. Bless and release. That's it.
Bless it, release it, smudge it, let it go.
So we want to thank you all for being here. Candy and Elizabeth, Alicia and Steve and Rhonda and
Miranda and Wendy.
I
think of all the names that popped up.
Y'all are great. You show up every week. And if you show up in the replay, #replay, we follow up on all these conversations. You can reach out to me, devonoday@gmail.com. And Teri, you can bring us to a close.
To piggyback on what you just said, Devon, I appreciate all of you showing up today, sharing, because that is so valuable to us. We love interacting. And if you're in the Middle Tennessee area, watch your news, because it is supposed to be kind of funky tonight, whatever that means. I don't know, but just, prepare responsibly. And until we see you next Wednesday, increase the peace. See ya.
Bye. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.